Thus, while Macs has taken center stage in 2023, there have also been a few other major releases, including the new iPhone and watches. However, iPads are one item that has been absent from the entire list. What is the current state of the iPads in 2012? This year, not a single iPad has been released. The new Apple Pencil is the only exception, but can we still classify it as an iPad release? Not that I think we can. In light of the fact that Apple considers 2023 to be all but gone, I'm going to tell you what we should expect to see some new iPads in 2024. So let's talk about this model right now to get things started. As you may already be aware, I own an iPad Pro. This particular one is the 11-inch variant. The iPad Pro hasn't received any updates in almost a year. In fact, we received a release at the end of 2022 announcing the inclusion of M2 chipsets in the iPad Pros, but we haven't heard anything at all since. The good news is that new iPad Pros are undoubtedly in the works, particularly now that the M3 chipset has been released. And I believe that the iPad Pro will be the next generation of Apple products to be released. But because of that, it appears that the iPads will also feature an entirely new design with OLED panels for the first time. The good news is that these OLED screens will probably be included in both the bigger iPad Pro and the 11-inch model. There have been additional rumors suggesting that the iPads themselves will have displays that are marginally larger, but not by a lot. This is the 11-inch model, much like the one we have here. It will reach 11.1 inches, after which the 12.9-inch mark will be fulfilled, reaching a height of 13 inches. Because the M2 chipset in the likes to say the MacBook Air, even the iPad Pro gets a little bit toasty. And with the M3, it's definitely a hotter chip. And at the moment, the only M3 devices are the iMac, and also that MacBook Pro 14-inch. They have fans inside to keep it cool. And I think that's something that's going to have to be done here with the iPads. I don't think a fan's going to be added to an iPad, but I just think a new kind of cooling system is going to be on its way. I did, however, also bring up the design itself. It's conceivable that the design will be changed. This design has actually been with us since 2018. Of course, we've made some changes, including adding a LiDAR sensor and 2 more cameras to the back. Naturally, over the M1 and M2, the chipset also evolved from a 8X and a 18ZZ, or whatever you want to call it. However, this design has gone through 4 generations and Apple has to modernize it right now. This time, I believe it will actually happen, especially since those new OLED screens will be installed inside of them. The iPad's OLED screens will probably result in a slight price hike as well, given OLEDs are not the most affordable form of display available. Therefore, it's highly possible that the cost of the 2 sets of iPad Pro models will increase by at least $100 apiece. Both the 11.1-inch and the 13-inch models are included in this. If Apple is going to undertake such a significant improvement, I don't see how they will be able to maintain the current cheap pricing. Additionally, the price of an iPad or iPhone typically goes up by $100 or so when a new design is introduced. I believe that to be the case in this instance. However, there is one more feature that I believe Apple will maintain, a USB-C port, which will likely include a Thunderbolt 3 or USB 4 port inside of it. Furthermore, rumors have it that the iPad Pro series may get a MagSafe charger in the future, and I think this is going to be the more likely one that we see anything akin to the magnetic MacBook Pros. Personally, I don't think it will work in the same way as the MagSafe that comes with an iPhone, that is, with the physical pad and the magnets. Alternately though, the new iPad Pro is on the horizon and you're undoubtedly curious about the precise release date. As I mentioned earlier, because there have been no iPad launches at all, I believe there will be an event in the spring. As you can see, Apple often hosts an event in the spring. Additionally, this is most likely going to be a more focused iPad video or event that they host, and the iPad Pro will most likely be the star of the show at that one. It will undoubtedly feature an OLED display, a new cooling system, and a new design. You get the point. It will most likely be the primary beginning of it. However, there is another item that might be changed at that event. Additionally, there might be a press release shortly before this model. This is the iPad Air, and it is evident that its body is remarkably similar to that of the iPad Pro. Its single rear camera is presumably the primary distinction, but other than that, they are fairly similar. Of course, all we have is this LED screen. Additionally, it will always lag, say, a year in receiving chipset updates. This may represent Apple's new course of action. I think Apple will be implementing this for the MacBook Pro and MacBook Air models. I recently created a movie about it, so if you want to watch it and see my details, please click the link above. But I think that will come to pass. With the iPad Air M2, I don't think a new design will be coming soon. I predict that this design will be used once again, if not longer. Thus, don't anticipate any significant changes to the general layout, screen, or anything else. The only chip that will change is the internal M1 to M2 chip. Everything else will remain exactly the same. However, as I mentioned before, it's highly probable that this will be updated either prior to or concurrently with the iPad Pro. The iPad mini is what comes next in reality. This one is difficult as well. It would simply get too hot to place something like an M1 or M2 inside of it. To be completely honest, the power of it also soon kills the battery. As a result, the battery life would be quite poor. Naturally, you could also suggest that it would remove a few cores and reduce the clock speed of the M processor. However, that suggests that this should have a chipset akin to the A70 Pro, and I think that's going to be included in it. It appears that the iPad mini will house the A7 Pro. Reiterating the previous point, since this is the first version of the iPad mini, I don't believe we will see any other designs on it. Everything will remain precisely the same. Nothing will be changed in that regard. It will likely only be a minor update to the A15's chips, which will presumably be carried over to the A17 Pro as well. However, it is possible to receive an A16. To put it mildly, I will be really unhappy if it does receive that. Given that the A16 is a new model that will be released in 2024, it deserves better than this. The iPad that has been waiting the longest for an internal upgrade or refreshed is this one. In actuality, this was updated at the end of 2021, and since then, there have been no revisions. It has been more than 2 years since this was last updated, and since I adore my iPad mini, I sincerely hope that it receives the same attention as the A17 Pro. However, little else will likely change. The USB-C port and its resulting speeds will remain identical. Naturally, the only other possibility exists and applies to all three of these iPads. I have not addressed the possibility that the top camera could shift to a landscape orientation, meaning it would no longer be in a portrait orientation. However, as for the release itself, it's feasible that we'll see this as a press release once more around the start of summer, or it might be updated at the iPad event that will likely take place in the spring, where the A17 Pro will be included. The 10th generation iPad, or simply the iPad, is the final iPad to discuss. It goes without saying that the 11th generation design will be released, and that design will resemble the current iPad Air design, which is extremely similar to this one, the 10th design. Therefore, I don't anticipate any significant adjustments. When all was said and done, since it's more of a budget iPad, it makes sense to put an A15 chipset inside of it. And for that reason, I'm considering not using an iPad to hold an A16. That is not quite far enough ahead of time. Therefore, I'm thinking that the A15 chipset will likely be installed in the 10th or 11th generation iPad. Furthermore, the design has just been altered. There have been no modifications made to the screen technology or anything else. The attachments, such as the Portfolio Magic Keyboard and other items, will remain exactly the same. Given that September is when the iPad has traditionally been released for a very long time, it is probable that the release date of the iPad will now fall on that date, and it might repeat itself. Given that it will have been 2 years and would require an upgrade, it might be released towards the end of 2024. The only other possibility is that, as previously mentioned, it might surprise us by arriving in the spring. However, the most important thing to remember about it, in my opinion, is that it will occur in 2024. Well, folks, that brings this video to a close, so kindly hit the like button if you enjoyed viewing it. At the same time, please make sure to hit the notification bell and subscribe to this channel if you want to hear the most recent updates on Apple news, reviews, and comparisons. I'll see you all very soon, guys. Until the next time, be careful. Goodbye.